Hello everyone, and welcome to Sips and Stories. My name is Elizabeth, and in today's video, I will finally be doing my Jane Austen July TBR. Better late than never, right? This is my first year participating in Jane Austen July, and I am really excited about all of the books I plan to read this month. Every year it is hosted by Katie from Books and Things, and this year she is joined by Blatantly Bookish and the Spinsters Library as well. So I will link all of their channels and announcement videos below if you would like to participate. I am so excited about all of these books. I had a fun time putting this list together, so grab your favorite beverage and join me as we discuss these amazing Jane Austen books. Question number one is read one of Jane Austen's 6 major novels, and that is really easy. The girls are doing readathons for both Mansfield Park and Persuasion. I decided to go with Persuasion, not only because I own this beautiful Thomas Nelson edition, but because it's a little bit shorter and I think I can fit it in with all of my other reading this month quite easily. I also do really enjoy Persuasion. It's a lot of people's favorites, Jane Austen, because it's a wonderful romance between Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth, who reconnect after years of being apart. I really like it because it has a summery feel to it. In fact, I featured it in my summer TBR as well, just that it is set at the coast of Lyme Regis. A lot of pivotal scenes take place there, and I am really excited to reread Persuasion this year. Since I've already read Persuasion several times, I thought that I would try out the audiobook version this year, and I was so excited because I found a version by one of my favorite audiobook narrators, and that's Karen Savage from LibriVox. I will link her audiobook below because I love Karen Savage. I love when she does Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, Anne of Green Gables, and so when I found out that she did Persuasion too, I was so excited, and I can't wait to reread this book and follow along with her wonderful narration. The next question number 2, is read one of Jane Austen's books that is not one of her major 6 novels. And for that, I decided to read some of her juvenilia this year. I own this beautiful set by Abbeville Press. It's basically reproductions of each of the volumes of Jane Austen's juvenilia. So we have volume the 1st, volume the 2nd, and volume the 3rd. And these include actual scans of Jane Austen's own handwriting. So you can see her handwriting, you can see how she edited herself and crossed out words and replaced them with different words. And she was quite brutal sometimes, like she really goes at it and starts crossing things out. And you can also see her handwriting, what it looked like too, because contrary to popular opinion, it was very short and quick and crisp, and her handwriting to me almost looks like she was thinking faster than she can write. A lot of flourishes, a lot of blots, Harry Potter fans, and I really love these reproductions. These are some of my favorite books in my collection. So I think the way that the story goes is that Jane Austen's family held on to her juvenilia for over 100 years. It was just passed down to one generation after the other. So Jane Austen was hugely popular in the 19th century, but no one thought to go back and look at her juvenilia until the 1920s and the 1930s. The first volume, I believe, is at Oxford at the Bodleian Library because it has that stamp in it. And I think the story goes that they acquired it sometime in the 1920s or 30s for something crazy like 70 pounds. So the Austen family didn't even know what they had. And then I believe that the 2nd and the 3rd volumes are at the British Library, which is one of my favorite places. I'll probably be reading mostly from the 2nd volume, which has Love and Friendship in it, which is her novel that is written through a series of letters. The 2nd volume is also a lot of fun because it has Jane Austen's history of England, and she shows sketches that are drawn by her sister Cassandra. So Jane Austen writes descriptions of all the kings and queens, and then Cassandra went back and she illustrated it. It's really fun, and I will definitely show you some close-up shots of this one for sure. I love this collection. These are some of my favorite books in my entire book collection. It's really just such a treat to go back and read Jane Austen's words in her own handwriting. And I'm gonna try to read Love and Friendship in her own handwriting, but if I can't quite do it, they have the printed version in the back as well. So, oh my God, I love these books so much. Question number 3 is read a nonfiction work about Jane Austen's life or about the times that she lived in, and I'm going to go with a very popular one, and that is Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. I absolutely adore Lucy Worsley. She can do no wrong in my opinion. She's hilarious, she's super smart, she's just the best. And if you're unfamiliar with Lucy Worsley, she's a very famous historian. She has a lot of specials on BBC that you can go back and watch on YouTube. In fact, she did one about Jane Austen a few years ago, and I watched it for the first time and really enjoyed it. I learned so much about Jane Austen that I never knew, and it was all based on her book, Jane Austen at Home. So what she did in the special and what she does in the book is she goes back and she describes Jane Austen's life based on all the places that she lived and all the homes that she lived in, and it's really fascinating. So it starts off at the Steventon Rectory, which is no longer in existence, but that's where Jane Austen was writing the Juvenilia. And then it talks about her time at the Abbey School, Cassandra. Then she lived in Bath for quite some time because her father was sick and he had to take to the waters. And then she also lived with her brother in, I think, Southampton, and she loved going on vacation to Lyme Regis as well. And Lyme Regis, as you know, is featured very prominently in Persuasion. That's why I wanted to read it this summer, because it has that whole seaside feel. And then she talks a lot about Chawton House, which she lived in with her mom and her sister. So this book, I really enjoyed the documentary, and I cannot wait to go back and read the actual book. Another book that I thought I would throw in for this prompt was Jane Was Here, an illustrated guide to Jane Austen's England by Nicole Jacobson, Devin Dayton, with illustrations by Lexi Nielsen. And so this book kept popping up in all of my recommendation feeds, and so I just kind of decided to go ahead and buy it. And I am so glad that I did, because it is a lot of fun. Not only is it a beautiful coffee table book, and I will show you close-up shots, but it has a lot of really good information as well. So what the story is that these three friends, these three college girlfriends, they decided to take a trip in England together and visit all of the Jane Austen sites, both the historical sites and then some of these locations that were featured in all of the Jane Austen movies. And it's quite dense. It's packed with a lot of information if you are traveling in England and you want to visit some of these historical homes, because a lot of them are open to the public and some of them let you dress up in Regency costume. A lot of them have restaurants and high tea that you can participate in. So I really like how they organized this book by the different regions where Jane Austen lived. Very similar to Lucy Worsley, but they include all the mansions and famous homes that were in a lot of the Jane Austen adaptations. And so you can visit them, and that is really just my favorite way to travel. I love going to museums and then going out to eat after, and then going book shopping. It just sounds like a ton of fun. This book really makes me want to visit England. Please open up the border. I really want to go back sometime this year, but we'll see. We gotta wait for old Boris and Biden to make a decision, but I cannot wait to get over to England to visit a lot of the places that the girls talk about in this book. Question number 4 is read a retelling of a Jane Austen book, and I'm going with a very famous one, and that is The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. This one has been hugely popular. A lot of people are reading it again this year. I've seen it on a lot of your videos, and I have to agree, it's excellent. I did an experiment with this book. Instead of buying it, I decided to see how long it would take me to get from the public library. And guys, it took me 2 months to get this book from Hold. That is how popular it is. And in fact, my Hold just came in this week, just in time to make the video, so I thought the timing was perfect. And I'm already about 100 pages in, and I love this book. It's basically a retelling of Pride and Prejudice from Mary's perspective, Mary Bennet, the ugly duckling of the family. And I love this story. It's so sweet, it's so simple and adorable, and I can't wait to find out what happens to Mary. I can't wait to see if she becomes an independent woman, if maybe she has a romance. It's delightful. I especially love how the author Janice Hadlow writes this in Jane Austen style. So no one can write like Jane Austen. Jane Austen was perfection, but Janice Hadlow does a really, really good job of writing in Jane Austen's style. So this feels like it goes along with Pride and Prejudice perfectly. I really appreciate the research that she did and the effort that she made to write this book as similar to Jane Austen as possible. It's a winner for sure. Another popular one that everyone is reading this year is Pride and Premonition. I really had no intention of reading this book, but I saw it at the bookstore a few days ago. It was $5, so of course I picked it up. And it's by Tirzah Price. I believe it just came out a few months ago. Everyone is raving about it. And basically it's like a murder mystery Jane Austen style. So stay with me. I think this is something like Nancy Drew meets Pride and Prejudice, because Lizzie Bennet, she works for her father's law firm, Longbourn and Sons. How cute is that? And she meets Fitzwilliam Darcy, who works for Pemberley and Sons law firm, and they are both trying to solve this murder mystery together and outwit each other, but they're kind of falling in love with each other. It sounds adorable. The reviews are so positive, and if I have time, I am really excited to buy this book. I also considered question number 4 to not only include retellings, but to include books that are about Jane Austen, or where Jane Austen is featured as a character or a part of the plot. And one that I really want to read this year is Miss Austen by Gill Hornby. This is another one I've heard nothing but great things about. It is about Cassandra, Jane Austen's sister, and it's about her life after Jane Austen passed away as an older woman. And she's revisiting her life, and she's looking back on all of the letters that her and Jane wrote to each other. And Cassandra famously destroyed a lot of those letters. Historians do not know why. I think we obviously just think she was trying to keep some things private about the Austen family, so no surprise there. But I think where this book is going is that maybe Jane Austen had a romance that no one ever knew about. I'm not exactly sure, or a shocking family secret. Who knows? I'm really looking forward to this, and I cannot wait to read Miss Austen. Another one that I thought I would mention briefly, which I read last year, was The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. This one was a lot of fun as well. It takes place in the 1950s, shortly after World War II, and it's about a group of people living near Chawton, Jane Austen's home, who try to turn her house into a museum. So it features a farmer and a doctor and a school teacher and a Hollywood movie actress that are all working together to make this Jane Austen museum. And of course, a lot of romance and friendship ensues. I really enjoyed this book. It was one of my favorite reads last year, and I highly recommend it for Jane Austen July. The next book that I plan to read this month is The Austen Girls, also by Lucy Worsley. So not only does Lucy Worsley write fiction, write nonfiction, curate the royal household, make all of these documentaries, but she also had time to go back and write a YA novel. In fact, she's written several YA novels. One is about Jane Austen, one is about Queen Victoria, there's also one about Mary Queen of Scots. So I'm really hoping that I enjoy this so that I can go back and collect them all, because the covers are beautiful and I can't wait to have them all lined up on my bookshelf. So what is this story about? The story is about Jane Austen's nieces, Anna and Fanny, and I do believe that she did have nieces that were named Anna and Fanny. Especially Fanny, I know, is one of Jane Austen's favorite people. And this book is about the girls deciding who to marry, whether they should marry for love or money, which is obviously a huge part of Jane Austen's novels. And so the girls are going to all these balls and dances, and they decide to take some advice from their good Aunt Jane, whether to marry or to remain single. I cannot wait to read this. I'm really looking forward to it. Question number 5 is read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. And for this one, I really didn't know what to read. A lot of those 18th century books are long and dense and wordy, and I just didn't think I had the strength to read one of those novels. And then I saw on Spinster's Library that she was reading A Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft, and I thought, you know what? That sounds great. This has been on my TBR forever. I've always wanted this version of the book book by Gibb Smith. It's beautiful in person, naked hardback, really sturdy. And I've always been curious about this book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women, because it is supposed to be one of the first feminist essays arguing about female rights in property and marriage, and especially in education. And I am a huge advocate of girls' education. It's one of my favorite causes. And if you think that the fight is over, you couldn't be more wrong. There are still places throughout the world where girls are not getting a good education, and I really think that that is how society progresses. I am really looking forward to this book. Question number 6 is watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen novel, and for that I'm going to go with another popular answer, and that is the latest version of Emma that came out last year. So I'm a little bummed that I couldn't watch this in the movie theaters, because by the looks of it, it looks stunning, the costumes look really nice, and I would have liked to have seen it on the big screen. But I do plan to go back and watch it this year, and I'm hoping I will enjoy it. It does look like it's a little more of a slapstick, avant-garde, more satirical version of Emma. I know that Bill Nye plays the father, so if that's any indicator, I know that this one is going to be a lot of fun. If for some reason it is a flop, I do plan on going back and watching the BBC miniseries of Emma, which is a personal favorite of mine. Question number 7 is watch a modern screen adaptation or retelling of a Jane Austen book. I know a lot of people are probably going to go with Clueless. I enjoy Clueless. I like to watch it from time to time, but one of my favorite adaptations is Lost in Austen. Now, this was a miniseries that came out a few years ago, and I love it. It's been a while since I've watched it, so I'm really looking forward to getting the popcorn, getting the ice cream, and having a movie marathon with this one, because it's a ton of fun. It's basically about a modern girl living in modern day London who goes back into Pride and Prejudice, and she switches places with Elizabeth Bennet. And so Elizabeth Bennet comes out into the modern world, and then she goes back into Pride and Prejudice. I especially love Elizabeth Bennet in the modern world because she cuts her hair like me, she becomes vegan, she becomes like a social justice warrior. She's very independent, like we all knew that she would be if she was alive today. And then the girl, I can't think of her name, but when she goes back into Pride and Prejudice, she ends up messing up Pride and Prejudice, and so everything goes wrong. Jane marries Mr. Collins, Lydia runs off with Mr. Bingley, and then the girl ends up having a romance with Mr. Darcy because Elizabeth isn't there. It is so much fun. One of my favorite things in this movie is when she tells everyone that she makes £30,000 a year, and so they actually think she is more wealthy than Mr. Darcy. It's hilarious. I love this movie so much, and I cannot wait to go back and watch it this year for Jane Austen July. Thank you everyone for joining me for my Jane Austen July TBR. I am so excited about all of these books. I don't think that I'll get to half of them, to be honest. I still have a lot of reading I want to do in the month of July, but I love having options, and each of these books sounds fantastic. So happy reading, everybody.